Thank you all for having me here today. So like Min said, I'm Nat. I teach letterpress, book arts, and digital storytelling at the University of Maryland. I got my start letterpress printing in our makerspace on campus, Book Lab, which I've worked there for about 3 years now. There you go. Book Lab is primarily a teaching space, but it is also an experimental letterpress studio. My interest started academically in the history of the book, publishing, how books were made historically, but I shifted really quickly from reading about it to doing it myself. We teach a lot of the activist history associated with letterpress, and that's something that we and I take very seriously. So one of the things that I sort of kicked off in Book Lab is what I call rage printing. So again, I started working here in like 2020 or 2021. And I would basically open up shop in the morning after reading the news and arrive furious about just whatever events of the day and take out all of my anger and energy by printing political posters of some kind. So we're open to the public in Book Lab, and people will just sort of wander in there if there's activity going on. So rage printing for me was a way to spread a message at the same time. And I want to emphasize that a lot of the time it's the act of printing itself that spreads the message. So of course we also hang our posters around on campus everywhere. But I think it's really interesting the way that a lot of our message spread is based on watching and participating in the act of printing. Letterpress can be tough work, and it's an embodied sort of experience, which is why I think we got so much attention when I took a printing press to the Supreme Court. So that's the story I'm really here to tell today, is how almost 2 years ago, I and a group of friends took Book Lab's provisional press downtown after the Supreme Court leaked the draft opinion that would go on to repeal Roe v. Wade. So I heard the news when it broke out at like 10 p.m. and I called my mom. Hi, Mom. But then I quickly called up my friends and coworkers. So this is Diana Proenza, and this is Dylan Lewis, and these are some other friends who do not work in Book Lab, but were there that day and helped. But this story is every bit as much Diana and Dylan's as it is mine. They picked up the phone that night. They showed up at 6 a.m. to help me set type, and they helped me physically haul all of that crap that you see there on the metro in the morning to get downtown. So we got there at, I think, like 10 a.m. And as you can kind of see in this photo, it really was not as crowded as I expected it to be. And weirdly, it was mostly pro-life protesters, but slightly sweaty and not easily intimidated. I plopped the press down directly in front of the court steps and got to work. As you may have guessed, this was not my first rodeo. The first protest I ever went to was when I was 16, and Texas was trying to pass abortion restrictions through Senate Bill 5. So my hometown hero, Wendy Davis, we're talking a lot about Texas today, filibustered for 13 hours to stop the abortion restrictions in Texas. This is my friend's dog, Lexi. This issue has always been important to me, and even more so in 2022, when just a few weeks prior to the Supreme Court protest, I had actually suffered another miscarriage. So by that time, I had been dealing with infertility for about 2 years and was just starting treatment. And it was really jarring and really personal to hear pro-life protesters chanting things like, and I quote, "babies never choose to die." And I made at least one person terrified that day and think about their life choices when I looked her in the eye and asked her why mine did. So as the day went on, more pro-choice protesters joined our ranks. You can see the crowd shot. And our posters ended up scattered throughout the crowd. Planned Parenthood showed up with the usual, like, if you've ever been to a DC protest, you know, the nonprofits and advocacy groups will circulate their like laser jet pre-printed posters. It's the purple ones here from Planned Parenthood. But the media and other protesters were actually really interested in watching what we were doing, the act of printing, how the press worked. And we circulated our prints out really fast. Um, as an aside, the only reason we actually stopped printing that day was because I broke the roller on the provisional press. And I'm pretty sure that Stephen Lizgarst actually sent us a free replacement because of all the media coverage we got. So thank you to them. And a shout out again because Pip is hosting a provisional press workshop coming up soon, as Mint mentioned at the beginning. So maybe get in line for one of those. They work great. Back to the story, we of course made headlines with our posters and the embodied act of printing, as I'm thinking about it, because the posters themselves a little sloppy. You can see my lockup is made entirely of magnets. Maggie earlier mentioned using children's locks and stuff, and that was definitely the kind of thing we were working with to get it on the road. But the fallout from the Dobbs decision is still an issue that we're dealing with all over the country. This was almost 2 years ago, but it's still super relevant. Just a couple weeks ago, I think at the beginning of February, maybe, Alabama came out with a ruling that threatened IVF specifically following Dobbs' precedent. But to end this on a lighter note, I'm actually now 5 months pregnant with my IVF rainbow baby. And while it seems like IVF is safe in the short term, it's of course something I take very personally. And if it's not safe in the long term, I'll be out there protesting.